If you're going to structure a full body workout for a beginner, what would that look like?
It's challenging in a different way than high volume is challenging. If it's structured right,
Who should pick a 1 day a week?
choosing a routine that fits into your life, go into a well-designed full body workout.
Welcome to the Lucid Fitness Podcast. I'm Erik and this is Sarah, and we started Lucid Fitness to help beginners find actionable guidance in a sea of fitness and nutrition information.
Welcome back to the Lucid Fitness Podcast. I'm Erik and this is Sarah, and today is going to be our first episode of a mini-series that we're calling Build Your Own Workout, where we teach those who want to learn how to build their own workout, how to build a workout. And specifically today, we wanted to start with our 1 day a week workout, which we generally at Lucid Fitness, we're recommending a full body workout for 1 day. It's really the only way you can hit your entire body. And so today we're going to talk about the structure and the exercises and all of the elements that go into a well-designed full body workout.
So, what exactly is a full body workout?
Well, full body workout is a workout that hits every muscle group in your body, and it would generally be in a single day that you would do it. And so you'd go in and you'd spend your 1 day in the gym doing each and every body part back to back instead of the more traditional split where you'd split different muscle groups. You'd go in and specifically do every muscle group in a single day. And it's our recommendation at Lucid Fitness for 1 day to do full bodies because it's really the only way to hit your entire body. We preach at Lucid Fitness as our first core principle is choosing a routine that fits into your life. If you can only go to the gym 1 time a week, it's important for, balancing your proportions to make sure that you're hitting every muscle group when you are in the gym. Most of my early gym going was 3 days a week, full body.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we don't recommend it is generally with 3 days a week, push-pull legs is usually superior just because you can do a lot more volume for specifically muscle groups in the single workout.
What would be your recommendation? Who should pick a 1 day a week workout?
Busy people, for the most part. It's limited with the volume side of things, and full body, though, it can really drive up the amount of time that you're spending in the gym.
Okay, so that feels like we're going into pros and cons world of this workout. So let's start with the pros. What are the pros of a full body workout?
The pros of a full body workout are it's efficient. It's only requires 1 day a week. You can scale it to 2 or 3, but usually if you're doing a full body, you're gonna do it once a week, and it's efficient for its purpose, right? It only requires 1 workout a week, so you only have to go to the gym once. It's all of your body parts, so it generally, if you're following a strong full body workout, you're gonna hit every muscle group in an equal amount, and you should realistically get equal amount of growth across your entire body. There's means of balancing it to make it so that bigger muscle groups are growing at the appropriate rate compared to the smaller muscle groups, because you don't want to go in and if you do the same amount of sets for your arms as you do for your back, your arms may develop quicker because the back exercises and chest exercises are also hitting your arms. But we'll talk about that in a bit. It's also not just efficient on your weekly time, but it's efficient inside the actual workout as well. And so we recommend prioritizing compound exercises, and we talk about it a lot. And full body is kind of the embodiment of compound exercises because you don't really have the luxury of doing many isolation exercises. Just by the nature of needing to hit every large muscle group, it kind of confines you into hitting the most efficient movements for each of those muscle groups. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on results, right? And so that's a key distinction with the full body is while it is a limited amount of sets per muscle group, if it's structured right, you still get pretty good gains because you're using highly effective compound movements as your primary movements for the muscle group, right? And I think that full body can be a very difficult thing to structure properly because of the limitations of how many sets you can do in a day, because it runs up. So for every set you add to a muscle group, that's with 6 or 7 muscle groups, that's adding a significant amount of time. That's adding 6 or 7 sets. And so to go from 3 sets per muscle group to 4 sets per muscle group, that's an additional, 6, 7 sets, which can add, 20 to 30 minutes. And so it doesn't, in some ways it scales well, but in others it doesn't. And that's one of the limitations, is you want to add volume to your workouts in order to get more of a chest pump or more of a shoulder pump or whatever you're chasing. But full body doesn't really lean very well into the higher volume, because in order to stay balanced, you have to distribute sets, and every set you add adds a significant amount of time to your workout. So it's perfect for somebody who's like, I could go for, 2 hours on a Sunday, right? It's perfect for that because you can still scale out your sets and increase your volume, but you still have the appropriate time to do everything, right? Whereas if you can go one time a week and you have to still be confined to that hour, you're much more limited on how much volume you're going to be able to squeeze in, unless you drop off things like extra arm isolation or extra ab isolation.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like we're going into the cons part of full body, and immediately, like, first vision in my mind is this sounds exhausting. Like, this sounds like, I mean, you're telling me 4 to 6 exercises that are all compound movements. That feels like it would be really tiring.
It is. And spoken from someone who did full body 3 times a week for years, that's one of the things that we talk about in our Psychology of the Fit People episodes that we did on a couch. We talk about my journey and your journey, and how a lot of the beginning of my journey was arrogantly doing full body workouts 3 times a week. So coming from me, it is more challenging. It's challenging in a different way than high volume is challenging. Like high volume, and when I say high volume, I mean doing lots of sets for a specific muscle group. It's a different difficulty. It's a lot more central nervous system fatigue. It's a lot more overall just body fatigue, because not just your chest is getting exhausted, your whole body gets exhausted, right? If you're doing it right, if you're training with intensity. And in order to get gains on one day a week, you do have to train pretty hard, right? And so going in at an hour and a half of compound movements, it's especially for beginners, it's demanding. I originally had the belief that full bodies were great for beginners, and in some elements of learning compound movements and learning how your whole body moves together, it has a lot of benefit. But the difficulty of it kind of gives you a skewed perspective of what fitness actually is. And people end up gravitating towards more traditional splits or push-pull legs, because usually they're straight up just more pleasant to do, and they're still effective. Right. And so that's one of the trade-offs with moving to a higher volume, going more frequently. It allows you to be more comfortable in the already uncomfortable aspects of going to the gym. And another thing with full body, a limitation of it is, like I was talking about earlier, it doesn't scale the best, because you should always have at least a day of rest and recovery between hitting a muscle group again, because that muscle group needs to repair, right? And so that's the beauty of other splits, is having a day like upper lower, which will be next episode we'll talk about. Having upper lower, you can put a day in between or 2 days in between, but you can also do them back to back. Right. And so that's the benefit that allows upper lower to be 2-day and 4-day a week. Whereas with full body, you can still put a day between, but once you hit 3 full bodies in in a week, you're doing 3 very demanding workouts with just a day in between, and they're usually long workouts. And that, I would say my time spent doing full body multiple times a week was more exhausting in a lot of ways, just because you aren't fully recovering between workouts.
Mm.
And that's the scalability problem of full body workouts, is if you're training with intensity, doing full body, it's gonna be a performance hit going with only a day in between.
Yeah, you're going to be exhausted. Your nervous system is not going to be recovered all the way. Your muscles are not going to be recovered all the way.
Oh.
I know for me, even when we just do just a leg day, sometimes it's 2 or 3 days before I feel like I could hit a leg day again. So I
Right.
can imagine how difficult that would be.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of full body. It's funny you mentioned it, I didn't even really think of it, but you get significantly less sore.
Oh,
And
okay.
soreness is generally a volume thing. If beginners doing anything is going to make you sore, but the amount of volume you do, so the number of sets you do for a muscle group determines how much damage you do to the muscle group, right?
Mhm.
And usually, and it's not a direct correlation, but usually the amount of damage you do to the muscle group is reflective of how sore you're going to get.
Mhm.
Advanced lifters, people who have been training for a while, they usually don't get as sore, but they still do get sore. And there's a lot of variables that go into DOMs. There's not a direct correlation between DOMs and progress, but the more volume you do, almost everyone who does a higher volume workout is going to be more sore on average.
Okay, that makes sense. Even though I feel like I would be exhausted after
It's a
working
different,
that.
like I said, it's a different
It's a
exhaustion.
different hard.
It's like, yeah, it's hard to explain unless you've done a lot of full body workouts.
Which I haven't, so I'm gonna rely on you for your expertise. If you're gonna structure a full body workout for a beginner, what would that look like?
So a full body workout, I usually recommend between 12 and 18 sets for a beginner. And starting there, because that gives you enough sets for between 4 and 6 exercises. So 4 and 6, it really depends on if you are trying to hit your arms extra and if you're trying to hit your abs extra. And so that 4 to 6 is kind of the sweet spot for full body. Again, for any other splits, I recommend 12 to 15 sets. But for full body at 12 to 18, just so you have the option of hitting every muscle group with at least some sets. And so between 12 and 18 sets, 4 and 6 exercises. I recommend 3 sets for large muscle groups and then 2 sets for smaller biceps, triceps, abs.
Okay.
This is just for efficiency's sake. The large muscle groups should get more sets. I mean, that makes sense for most people. And the smaller muscle groups, they're not only getting hit by the bigger muscle groups, they don't need as much work as the muscle groups. So you're better off shifting some of your sets. And so 12 to 18 sets and then 4 to 6 exercises, right? And the goal here is for our legs, our shoulders, our chest, and our back, we're doing 3 sets. And then our biceps, triceps, and abs, we're going to do 2 sets, okay? And then usually you put them in order of size. And I haven't really talked about this much in the other videos, but when you're building, you always want to do your largest muscle groups first. And so which ones are the largest? Just like physically look at your body, your legs are pretty large, right? Your legs are your largest muscle groups, especially all of the upper and lower leg together, and you take into account glutes. They're big muscles, right? And so we always do legs first. So we start with legs, we move on to our back. Again, very large muscles of the back, lots of back muscles. We do that after that. And then it's a toss up. I usually rotate back and forth between shoulders and chest. I consider them about the same size in terms of how much weight and volume they can move. And then after that, you have your biceps, so your front of arm, your triceps, your back of arms, and then your abs. I don't recommend usually wasting volume on forearms for full body, if you have extra time, throw some at the end of your workout, near the end, because they're the smallest muscle groups. Same with calves. If you're trying to be efficient, you kind of have to make some sacrifices. That's the downside of full body. If you add, for every muscle group you add, it adds another 3 to 4 sets, which adds up again.
Yeah.
And so we kind of create this funnel where the largest muscle groups are at the top with the largest amount of sets. So 3, 3, 3, 3. And then you move to the smaller muscle groups, the arms and the abs, and it's 2, 2, 2, right? Biceps, triceps, abs.
Yeah.
And what that does is it front loads your workouts. And so your leg exercises, your deadlifts and your squats or your leg press are always going to be more demanding on your nervous system, more demanding on your body as a whole, because they're complex movements, they're compound movements. And those, it requires more energy, it requires more focus to properly do those. And so we put those first when your energy and focus are highest. So when you walk into the gym for a full body workout, you look for whatever legs you're doing, you go to do legs. And then you move, and as you move down that funnel, each exercise takes less and less energy, takes less and less focus. And then by the time you get to arms and abs, you're going to be tired, but you're on arms and abs. They usually require a lot less focus, a lot less of your nervous system, because they're isolation movements. And this is how you structure a workout to be efficient, right? And anyone doing a full body is looking for an efficient workout. And this is how you do it most efficiently.
Okay. That makes sense. And that sounds like it would be very efficient to do. What is your thought process on things like, from my personal experience of doing any full body workout, it was almost like a Tabata workout or an AB workout where you were saving time by doing a compound movement, and instead of resting, you went to a isolation, easier movement, and then back to your compound movement, and then back to an easier isolation movement, and you were knocking those things out simultaneously as you were going.
So like a superset.
Yeah.
You can, it will be hard, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm hesitant to recommend that, especially for beginners, is because in order to do that, you have to make sacrifices. Your form, your weight, your energy going into these big compounds, it's going to be less. There's no way, you can't go and do a hard set of squats and then go do a light, whatever it may be, and come back to the squats and be completely recovered. There's a reason people rest in between sets. And while I don't think it's something that isn't effective, if you train for anything can be effective. If you want to do supersets, if you want to get your heart rate up and just keep going, do it. But understand that there's going to be, everything comes with a sacrifice, right? If you don't rest in between sets, rest is proven to improve your performance going into sets. That's why so many people recommend resting even upwards 4 or 5 minutes between heavy sets, is because there's a direct correlation between how long you rest and how well you do on the following set. There's a direct correlation. So if you are going to superset, and a lot of people swear by it, I've tried it, and the value I got from it was lower than had I just had that energy going into the next set. But that's my personal experience. Some people swear by it.
Yeah.
I don't personally. Another technique would be doing a drop set, which would be, I would always do it on my last set for the exercise. Say I'm doing 25-pound bicep curls. I would do my last set, and then I drop to 15 and go to failure, and drop to 10 and go to failure, drop to 5 to go to failure. By the time you're doing the 5, your arms, like that 5 feels harder than the original 25, and that would be a drop set. Another effective thing, but again, completely exhausting a muscle before moving on to another muscle is going to affect the next movement. It's why, going back to what I was saying about the funnel, you start with the hardest first, because if you started with abs and did backwards, you did abs and then arms and then shoulders and then chest and then back and then legs last, like that leg exercise is going to be terrible. You're not going to feel very good, right? You can do it, but it's not going to be nearly as effective.
Mm.
And honestly, anyone doing a full body, anyone with such a time constraint they can only go once a week, they're not going to want to waste their time there. And so they're going to want to do it in a more focused manner. But yeah, I think that if you want to do supersets or drop sets, try them, experiment with them, but understand they come at a cost.
Mm.
And until you're at a level where you're intra workout work capacity, so the amount of work you can do before you're exhausted to the point where you can't do anymore, is much lower than an advanced athlete that usually do things like what you were talking about.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I know I've kind of been talking about the structure, but do you want to talk about some of the exercises? Like if you were building a full body just based on the structure that I told you, what would you plug into a 1 day a week full body?
If I was doing it and I was taking the structure that you gave me, just from my perspective, and maybe even from a female perspective, I would be keyed in on the specific muscle groups I wanted to work for aesthetics. Because if I'm only going to be there, I'm in the gym, I'm working specifically to look a certain way. So I would probably focus half or more of those compound movements on the muscles that I wanted to grow. And that would probably be mostly my legs and upper back, because we're creating that hourglass physique. So it would be something like squats, leg press, a V squat, a belt squat, something like that, where you can, on any given day, kind of pick and choose. It's using the whole leg, but you can kind of either isolate the quad or isolate the glute, but everything's being worked. And that would be my primary focus. And then I would probably do an exercise for my back, such as like a row, a bent over row, or something of that sort. And then it would be a shoulder exercise, an overhead press, because we want those nice round delts that
Yeah,
can still
delts, yeah.
tilt that shape. And then for me, chest would probably be out of the picture. That would not be something that I would train.
Yeah.
It would maybe be arms and abs, but at that point I would probably even decide abs over arms, because at that point you've done so many things, such as doing the overhead press and already doing a bent over row. Your triceps and your biceps have already been interplayed a little bit. And yes, with a squat, like a belt squat or a back squat or anything like that, yes, your abs are engaged, but I would do something that would be more of an isolation to snatch that waist. That's kind of how I would set it up for myself if I were going to do it. Or if someone was like, I want a feminine physique, how would I do this? That's what I would set up.
Yeah, it's the men versus women
Yeah,
goals, right? Like most men wouldn't skip chest, right?
right.
But women, and it's interesting that you brought up the arms being hit enough by the compounds. And for men, that might not be the case. Like I would almost always recommend that men add some sort of arms at the end of their workout, because I think men's physique look better with more arms, right? And so the compound movements, while they are hitting those, and it's one of the benefits of the compound movements, is they're hitting the arms and they're embracing the core. They aren't going to give you the same impact of adding those isolations at the end. If you went to the gym and you only did barbell row, which is some crazy workout, all you did was barbell row, your back would look amazing and your biceps would develop, but it would not be the same development as if you only went and did barbell curls. Your arms would get a lot bigger with isolation. It's one of the benefits of isolation is if you want to target a specific group, you can target it really hard. But we're low on time with the full body.
Right.
And to your point about women wanting different things, that's where you kind of have to experiment. And while you and I both would still target compound movements, I would still have a chest and you wouldn't. You would spend more time on, abs or maybe even doing kickback. I know we do
Yeah.
kickbacks for you at the end of our leg workouts just to get in that extra, glute volume. And another thing that we never really brought up, and you made me think of it when you were talking about the AB exercises like the supersets. Also, with full body, you can alternate workouts too, like
That's
week over
true.
week. And so if you want to do your legs on one week is quad focused, and then the next week you could do a glute focused and kind of rotate A, B that way. So A on one week, B on another week. Because when I was doing three full body workouts a week for several years, I had an A and a B, and it went
Mhm.
A, B, A, B, A, B. Even though I was going the same days each week, I wasn't like on an 8-day cadence or anything like that. I would still alternate because honestly, like it gets boring doing the like
Yeah.
same chest workout. And the variations, they exist for a reason, right?
Mhm.
If you want more glutes, then doing hip thrusts are always going to give you better results than doing like a
Mhm.
raw deadlift or a raw squat. Even though they're still hitting your glutes, doing a compound movement that's specifically targeting that specific group, and that's for everybody, that's not just legs. Like, let's say you have naturally defined medial delts, like side delts.
Mhm.
You may even do some front raises for your shoulders, even though usually you want, a more balanced approach and you want to do a heavy movement. If you have naturally broad shoulders, maybe as a woman you don't want more side. Maybe
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
want to cap off the front or cap off the back, and you can kind of adjust accordingly. But these are more advanced topics. I feel like for the beginner, usually we want to focus on the heavy compound movements, right?
Mhm.
Like you said, some sort of squat, some sort of deadlift, some sort of leg press for legs. I do back after legs, and so you do a heavy row, like a barbell row or a dumbbell row or a cable row.
Mhm.
Then you do for shoulders or chest, pick one to go first. I like to do shoulders first, so I do a heavy overhead press with either a barbell or a dumbbell or an Arnold press, a little bit lighter
Mhm.
because it's more of a complex movement. And then for chest, we would do traditional barbell bench press, dumbbell bench press, or incline decline,
Yeah.
whatever angle you want to do. Then you'd go to the arms and the abs. And most people know how to do bicep curls. There's tons of variations. Most people know how to do tricep push downs. Those are, fan favorites. Most people like working on their arms. So you'd do some sort of bicep curl, some sort of tricep push down or overhead tricep, and then abs. There's a billion different ab exercises.
Mhm.
So that would kind of that would be what a beginner would focus on, is locking in on heavy compound movements for each muscle group, right? And
Mhm.
again, you're going to hear it a lot if you watch this entire series. We recommend just Googling movements.
Yeah.
We could sit here for an hour just one after another listing exercises, but just go to Google
Mhm.
or go to your favorite AI or whatever you search for, and you type in what's a good back exercise or what's a good compound back exercise, what's a good glute focused compound leg exercise, and it'll give you, it pops up on the top of Google. It'll literally show you like you don't
Yeah.
even have to click on things anymore. It'll show you, and then you just pick one
Yeah.
and you
Experiment.
try
This
it.
is a great time to experiment too. When you're a beginner and maybe you're just going to the gym once a week, this is a great time to set up an A/B and try, okay, well, I did all these ones on this day. I'm going to do these ones on this day. And okay, now I'm going to do a hybrid because I really liked these and I really liked those. And you create something else. There's a lot of freedom in being able to just find something and figure out if it works for you or not.
Yeah, that's a big part of the game,
Yeah.
is figuring out what works,
Yeah.
right? I i luckily leaned into the traditional things and I happen to like them, so I'm big on free weight compounds. I know you like more, cable compounds specifically for arms.
Hmm.
And I think we both like seated cable rows. A lot of people like that. Like, there's good movements, but until you figure out what you like, then there's it's hard to give you a defined specific workout, because if you, again, we don't want to give you scientifically optimal, squat, barbell bench press, overhead press, this cut and dry routine that you find terrible, and then you just never go to the gym. So put in a little bit of effort, put in a little bit of time to choose the exercises yourself. And what it does is it reinforces the process as well, because you have skin in the game. And I feel like I say that a lot too, by investing the time to learn these things instead of just taking this printed out sheet that we gave you. By taking the time to learn, and it's a small amount of time. If you're watching this, you probably already know a lot of the exercises. Just write them down in a functional workout in the structure that we talked about. Maybe rewind to the 7-10 minute mark when we were talking about the structure of a workout, and just write it in as we go, and then try it. And you may find like, oh man, my biceps aren't developing enough. What do I need to do to fix that? And then you can tweak things. So to summarize what this video is about, the structure of a full body workout, which is what we recommend for 1 day a week, is usually 12 to 18 sets, 4 to 6 exercises, depending on if you want to do arms and abs at the end. And then for the large muscle groups, we're going to do 3 sets. So legs, back, shoulders, chest, 3 sets. And then for biceps, triceps, and abs, we recommend 2 sets. If you have more time, you can add more sets for those. And then choosing a compound to go into each of those body parts, into those muscle groups. We went over a few of the compounds that could squeeze in, but just for the sake of learning and sake of having skin in the game, you want to learn some of these compound movements for each muscle group. And then once you have the exercises that you want to use for your full body, then you do them in order of largest muscle group to the smallest. So again, starting with legs, moving to back, moving to shoulders, chest, arms, abs. This makes sure that all of your energy and your main focused time is spent on the larger muscle groups, and then as you get more and more tired, the work gets easier and easier. In this video, we do talk a lot about compound exercises. If you're curious why we preach compound exercises so much, you can watch our core principles video, similar podcast type style, where we talk over the reason of using compound movements as your primary movements, especially important for full body. And check out that video if you're interested.
Yeah, and come join us over on Discord. Perhaps you have an idea of you formulated, you put stuff together, and you're not sure if this was a good idea for a full body. Come ask us over there. We are happy. We're always there in the chat talking to you guys.